Hey everybody, excited to have you join us again for part 2 of Harbor Talks as we talk about leadership. If you tuned in last week, we talked about that pride is the fulcrum mistake that leads to all other mistakes. And today, if anything, I just wanted to be a little more relaxed, just a conversation between you and myself and maybe some other things that we've learned about leadership. But as I thought about what I wanted to get into today, I thought, last week was about pride. This week's really about even a deeper issue within a leader, something that's really central to their heart. And the truth is all of us have insecurities, right? We all wrestle with different things. I get asked a lot before I go to speak at church or at different conferences, hey, do you ever get insecure? Do you ever get nervous? The truth is, of course I do. Of course I get nervous about that. I worry, is anybody going to care what I have to say? Is anybody going to think what I am sharing matters? But I think over time, the difference between wrestling with insecurities and then actually becoming an insecure leader is that you let them just kind of sit and soak and begin to define you. And so that leads me to what I want to talk about today. And it's going to be brief, but here's this big idea today. An insecure leader is in danger of not being one. And what I'm not saying here is that you can't have insecurities. Man, I have insecurities. I have insecurities about the fact that I'm going bald, that my hair's turning white, that I'm getting older. I have insecurities about, my own leadership, all those kind of things. But when you begin to let those insecurities define you as a leader, that's when you become an insecure leader. And when that happens, you're really not leading anybody. Because the more you focus on those own insecurities, the more you focus on yourself. And a leader has got to be about the organization. You've got to be about those around you and the needs of your organization, which leads me to this next point, and it's this. When we lead out of our insecurities, we default to self-protection and self-preservation at the expense of the needs of the organization. If I was back here, right, big PowerPoint, right, we'd have these kind of bolded, default to self-protection and self-preservation. That's what you're going to end up doing. When you begin to lead out of those insecurities, you're going to now put the risk of the organization at the expense of all those insecurities. Those are going to be things that drive you. And what ends up happening is you begin saying no to everything. You begin listening to the no's in your organization, right? You begin listening to that one person that maybe starts to tick off and relate to that thing in your own insecurity. That's where you lean. Rather than taking chances, rather than being willing to risk failure, you start to shrink and resist doing the thing that God called you to do, and that is to lead, because at this point, you're looking for self-preservation, self-protection, and you're doing it at the expense of the organization. So here's a couple things to think about this week, as again, we want to move the needle in leadership is this, steps to overcoming insecurities. First one is this, be the biggest cheerleader in your organization. A great way to step outside yourself, to look beyond your own insecurities, your own concerns about yourself, is to look at others and raise them up. I've heard the phrase, right? Hire really smart people, really talented people, and then be their biggest cheerleader. That's what you can do. That's a great way to chip away at your own insecurities, is just give that praise to somebody else. Be the biggest cheerleader in whatever space you find yourself. Number 2, lean into tough stuff. If there's one thing that differentiates a leader from a follower, leaders, when they encounter tough stuff, difficult situations, they lean in rather than leaning away. When we start leading out of our insecurities, man, we're going to pull back. Again, we're going to shrink our leadership. But when we are leading out of a position of calling and a place where we know we're doing what God's called us to do, then we lean in. And that begins to overcome our insecurities. This last one here is number 3. We say it in our house a lot. Admit your mistakes. And even right here, parentheses, own them. There's a place where you can admit your mistakes and go, yeah, I screwed up. But that's not enough. You've also got to own them, because if you don't own them, you won't learn from them and you'll be doomed to just repeat it. So admitting is great, and that's a good step, but you really need to go a little layer deeper and own the mistake. And when you do that around those that you lead, man, not only does that strip away the insecurity from you, but it builds confidence in those you're leading that they can trust your leadership. I hope this has been great for you. I hope that you will begin to wrestle with this idea of not leading out of your insecurities, and that you'll trust God to call you to be the leader in all the places He's led you to lead. Thanks for joining us. Tune in next week.